Right. So we need to talk about something that's happening on Platform X that's about as subtle as a hippo doing ballet in a china shop. Journalists blocking people who dare to present actual facts about Eritrea. And not just any journalists. We're talking about former BBC Africa correspondent Martin Plaut and his merry band of media personalities who seem to treat the block button like it's a stress ball during tax season. Now you might be thinking, but isn't blocking people just a normal part of social media, like posting pictures of your breakfast or pretending to care about your aunt's garden updates? Well, yes and no. When journalists, the people whose literal job is to inform the public, start blocking critics who present verified facts, we've entered a territory that's about as democratic as a dinner party hosted by Henry VIII. Let me paint you a picture of just how absurd this situation has become. Imagine you're at a massive conference about Eritrea, and every time someone stands up with documented evidence that contradicts the speaker, they're not just asked to sit down, they're literally thrown out of the building and banned from ever returning. That's essentially what's happening on Platform X, except it's happening in digital form, which somehow makes people think it's more acceptable. And here's where it gets even more ridiculous. These journalists aren't just blocking random internet trolls who spend their days arguing about whether the Earth is flat or if birds are actually government drones. No, they're blocking distinguished academics, researchers, and Eritrean citizens who have first-hand experience and knowledge of their own country. It's like having a conference about space exploration and blocking NASA scientists because they disagree with your theory that the moon is made of cheese. Let's take a moment to appreciate the irony here. These are the same journalists who probably have truth seeker or speaking truth to power in their bios, yet they're blocking faster than a teenager hiding their browser history when their parents walk in. It's particularly egregious when it comes to coverage of Eritrea, where certain Western mainstream media figures have developed a rather fascinating relationship with the block button. The situation with Martin Plaut deserves special attention because it's become almost comically systematic. Here's a man who's made a career out of reporting on Africa, yet when faced with factual corrections about Eritrea, his response is about as mature as a toddler putting their fingers in their ears and shouting, "I can't hear you." The difference is, toddlers eventually grow out of this phase. Some journalists, apparently, do not. And let's talk about the domino effect this creates. When a prominent journalist blocks someone for presenting facts, it sends a message to their followers that this is acceptable behavior. It's like watching a parent eat all their Halloween candy in one sitting and then telling their kids about the importance of self-control. The hypocrisy is so thick you could spread it on toast. What's particularly fascinating is how these journalists justify their blocking sprees. They'll claim they're maintaining healthy boundaries or curating their space, which sounds reasonable until you realize it's the intellectual equivalent of building a fortress out of pillows and declaring yourself king of the bedroom. These aren't healthy boundaries. They're walls built specifically to keep out inconvenient truths. The impact on public discourse about Eritrea has been nothing short of disastrous. We're seeing the creation of what I like to call information bubbles of doom, where journalists can freely spread misinformation about a country while systematically blocking anyone who might correct them. It's like having a book club where you're only allowed to read one author's interpretation of events, and anyone who's actually lived through those events is shown the door. Think about this. When was the last time you saw a major Western journalist engage in a genuine, open dialogue about their Eritrea coverage? I'll wait. And while I'm waiting, I might as well teach my cat to do my taxes, because both seem equally likely to happen. The standard operating procedure has become make claims, block critics, rinse, repeat. But here's where it gets really interesting. And by interesting, I mean infuriating. Platform X, our favorite billionaire's digital playground, has positioned itself as a bastion of free speech and open dialogue. They've literally branded themselves as the town square of the internet. But when influential journalists use it as their personal bouncer to kick out anyone with inconvenient facts, it becomes less town square and more exclusive country club where the dress code is must agree with everything we say. The real tragedy here is that this isn't just about social media etiquette or professional journalism standards. This is about the systematic suppression of truth about an entire nation. When journalists like Plot block factual corrections about Eritrea, they're not just being unprofessional, they're actively participating in the spread of misinformation about a country that already faces enough challenges in having its voice heard on the global stage. And let's talk about the absolutely bonkers double standard at play here. These same journalists who block factual corrections will then turn around and write passionate articles about the importance of press freedom and the danger of echo chambers. It's like watching someone lecture about the importance of fire safety while actively juggling torches in a room full of gasoline. The solution isn't complicated, though it seems to be about as popular among certain journalists as a vegetarian option at a barbecue competition. It's called engagement with critics. Revolutionary concept, I know. Instead of blocking people who present factual corrections, how about, and this might sound crazy, actually engaging with them, checking their sources, maybe even, gasp, admitting when you're wrong. But no, that would require actual journalism, wouldn't it? It would mean doing the hard work of verification, fact-checking, and engaging with multiple perspectives. Much easier to just hit that block button and continue living in a carefully curated world where your narrative is never challenged and your biases are never questioned. The bottom line is this: if we're serious about fighting disinformation, we can't just focus on the obvious fake news. We need to look at how supposedly credible journalists are using platform features to maintain their own biased narratives. Because when it comes to transparency in journalism, blocking critics with hard factual truth isn't just bad practice. It's a form of censorship dressed up in a verified blue checkmark. And that, my friends, is about as democratic as a dictatorship with really good PR.